Why did you take money from the joint account? Serena shouted before I had even closed the front door. Her voice sliced through her mother's living room so sharply that I stopped with one hand still resting on the doorknob. I had just finished a 10-hour shift, installing a custom oak staircase in an old townhouse. Sawdust clung to the knees of my work pants. My back ached. My boots were muddy, and my hands smelled faintly of varnish and pine. Serena stood near the fireplace with her phone clenched tightly in one hand. Her mother, Claudia, sat on the couch in a cream-colored robe, watching me with the same expression she used whenever a waiter forgot her preferred table at a restaurant. Irritated disbelief, as though the entire world existed to follow her instructions. I lowered my tool bag beside the door. "Which money?" I asked. Serena stared at me. "The $12,000, Nathan. Do not act like you do not know what I am talking about. I checked the account 20 minutes ago. The money is gone." "Maybe because it was never yours," I replied. The room went silent. Serena blinked several times, clearly expecting me to apologize, explain myself, or immediately promise to transfer the money back. Instead, I stood there quietly. Claudia rose from the couch. "That account was meant for family expenses," she snapped. "Madison's rent is due tomorrow. She already told the landlord she would take the apartment. You will transfer the money back tonight, or you will pay the rent directly." I looked at her. Not a request, not a discussion, an order. For 2 years, I had repaired their homes, covered their bills, paid for emergencies, and listened to them explain why every sacrifice I made was simply part of being a responsible future husband. Yet Claudia still spoke to me as if I worked for her. Serena crossed her arms. "My sister is counting on us." "No," I said. "She is counting on me." Serena's mouth tightened. "This is not the time to be selfish." That word almost made me laugh. Selfish. I had spent my adult life building things for other people. Cabins that fit perfectly into uneven walls. Tables strong enough to survive generations of family dinners. Staircases shaped carefully until every joint carried its share of the weight. I knew how to recognize something solid. I also knew how to recognize something that only looked stable, because one support beam was carrying everything. Our relationship had looked stable for a long time. That evening, I finally saw the truth. I lifted my tool bag again and opened the front door. "Where are you going?" Serena demanded. I turned toward her. "To finish the job." I walked outside to my truck, lifted a cedar box from the passenger seat, and placed it carefully on Claudia's porch. I had made that box myself. During the first year, Serena and I were together. Originally, I planned to use it for our wedding vows. I had carved a pattern of interlocking branches into the lid. Now it held something else. A cashier's check for exactly $684.19. That was the total amount Serena had personally deposited into our so-called joint savings account. The box also contained a printed ledger showing every bill I had covered for her family, a copy of the cancellation confirmation for our wedding venue, a storage unit key, and a short handwritten note. "Everything that belongs to you is inside the unit. Everything that belongs to me stays with me." Then I climbed into my truck and drove away. My name is Nathan Cole. I am 35 years old, and I have worked as a carpenter since I was 19. I did not inherit a business. I did not have investors, wealthy relatives, or a college fund waiting for me. My father taught me how to hold a hammer properly, how to measure twice before making a cut, and how to respect the difference between cheap work and honest work. He died when I was 22, before I had the chance to show him what I eventually built. I started with repair jobs. Loose doors, broken fences, warped cabinets, damaged floors. During the day, I worked for a commercial contractor. In the evenings, I took private jobs whenever someone was willing to trust a young carpenter with rough hands and an old pickup truck. For years, my weekends smelled like coffee, sawdust, and sweat. Slowly, one recommendation became another. A kitchen renovation led to a custom dining table. A dining table led to a full set of built-in bookshelves. Bookshelves led to a restored staircase in a historic home. By the time I turned 32, I owned a small workshop, a reliable truck, and a modest 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. I had 2 employees and enough clients that I no longer accepted every job offered to me. I was not rich, but I was proud of what I had built. Then I met Serena. I was repairing a damaged walnut bar at a downtown restaurant. One corner had been cracked when a delivery crew dropped a heavy crate against it. Serena walked in during the afternoon carrying a laptop bag and wearing a dark green coat. She worked nearby as an event coordinator for a boutique hotel. She noticed the wood shavings on the floor and asked whether I was building something new. "Repairing something old," I said. "Is that harder?" "Usually." "Why?" I ran my hand over the damaged section. New wood tells you what it is. Old wood has history. You need to understand where it has already been stressed before you decide how to fix it. She smiled. That sounds surprisingly philosophical for a carpenter. It is only philosophical because I have not had enough coffee. She laughed. That laugh stayed with me. She remained at the restaurant until I finished the repair. We drank coffee afterward, and for the first few months, everything felt effortless. Serena said she loved the fact that I worked with my hands. You make real things, she told me once, running her fingertips over the calluses on my palm. Most men I meet just sit in offices talking about what they might do someday. She admired my house. She loved the kitchen cabinets I had built myself, the reclaimed oak dining table in the center of the room, and the porch swing I made for my mother before arthritis forced her to move into a smaller apartment. At least, I believed she admired those things because they reflected who I was. Looking back, I think she admired what they suggested I could provide. The first warning appeared 6 months into our relationship. Her younger sister, Madison, needed help moving into a new apartment. Serena asked whether I could repair a closet door and put up a few shelves. It should only take an hour, she said. It took an entire Saturday. The closet frame was cracked. Madison wanted floating shelves in her bedroom, a shoe rack near the entrance, and a desk fitted into an awkward corner of the living room. When I finished, Madison walked through the apartment with a glass of wine in one hand. This looks incredible, she said. I cannot believe people pay thousands for this kind of work. I waited for her to offer something. Not thousands. Even enough to cover materials would have been reasonable. Instead, Madison hugged Serena and laughed. You are so lucky. Having Nathan around is basically like having free renovations forever. Serena laughed too. I smiled because I did not want to make things uncomfortable. That was my first mistake. A month later, Claudia invited me to inspect her kitchen cabinets. Just tell me whether they can be saved, she said. They could not. The hinges were rusted. Several doors were splitting near the joints. The particle board beneath the sink had swollen from an old leak. I prepared a heavily discounted estimate for a replacement kitchen. The number barely covered materials and one employee's wages. Claudia stared at the page. I thought you were helping us, she said. I am. A regular client would pay almost twice that amount. But we are not regular clients. We are practically family. Serena stood beside her mother, saying nothing. I should have walked away. Instead, I told myself this was what people did when they were serious about a relationship. They showed up. They helped. They made sacrifices. I spent evenings and weekends building maple cabinets for Claudia's kitchen. When she complained about the cost of the materials, I covered part of it myself. When Serena told me a custom pantry would mean so much to her mother, I installed one. When Claudia changed her mind about the hardware after I had already purchased it, I paid for the replacement set. After the renovation was complete, Claudia invited relatives over for dinner. She proudly opened cabinet doors and drawers while everyone admired the kitchen. My future son-in-law built everything, she announced. For a brief moment, I felt appreciated. Then she laughed and added, of course, I had to supervise every detail. Men never understand how a proper kitchen should function. Everyone laughed. Serena laughed too. So I forced a smile and poured myself another glass of water. That became the pattern. Madison needed car repairs. Claudia needed a new fence. Serena wanted a new dining table because mine looked too rustic for the engagement party she imagined hosting. Every favor became an expectation. Every expectation became an obligation. Whenever I hesitated, Serena became quiet and wounded. I thought generosity mattered to you, she would say. Or worse. I do not want to marry someone who keeps score. So I stopped talking about the score. But numbers do not disappear just because nobody says them aloud. I proposed to Serena 18 months after we met. I took her to the lake where my father used to bring me fishing as a child. I had made a walnut ring box by hand. Inside was a simple diamond ring that cost more than my first truck. When I opened the box, Serena covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. Yes, she whispered. Of course, yes. For a while, I believed I had found the life I wanted. We opened a joint savings account for wedding expenses and our future together. The arrangement was simple. We would each contribute what we could. Serena earned less than I did, so I never expected an equal split. I only wanted us to build something together. During the first 6 months, I deposited almost $9,000. Serena deposited $600. I did not complain. She had student loan payments. Her hours at the hotel had been reduced. She needed professional clothes because she was applying for better positions. I told myself partnerships were not always equal every month. Sometimes one person carried more weight temporarily. That was normal. Then the withdrawals started. The first one was $450. When I asked Serena about it, she said Madison had fallen behind on rent after an unexpected medical bill. She will pay us back next month, Serena promised. Madison never did. The second withdrawal was $700 for Claudia's dental work. The third was $1,100 for Madison's security deposit, after she decided her apartment was too small. Each time, Serena informed me after the money was already gone. Each time, she used the same phrases. It was an emergency. It is only temporary. Family helps family. I slowly began to understand that the word family had a very specific definition in Serena's world. Claudia and Madison were family. I was funding. One evening, I came home exhausted after spending the day framing an addition in freezing rain. My shoulders hurt. My hands were numb. My clothes were damp. When I entered the dining room, I found Serena sitting at my table with Claudia and Madison. Apartment brochures were spread across the surface. "What is this?" I asked. Madison smiled brightly. My new place. The apartment building was in a fashionable renovated district downtown. Exposed brick walls, rooftop lounge, gym, concierge, desk, underground parking. I checked the monthly rent. $2,400, I said. Madison shrugged. "It is expensive, but it is close to everything." "What happened to your current apartment?" "It is depressing," Claudia answered. "Madison needs a fresh start." I looked at Serena. "She cannot afford this." Serena gave me a warning glance. "Madison is interviewing for better jobs. She works 3 shifts a week at a clothing store." "That is temporary," Madison snapped. I tapped the brochure. "This apartment requires the first month, the last month, and a security deposit. That is more than $7,000 before you move in." Claudia leaned back in her chair. "You are extremely focused on money, Nathan, because money matters when someone is signing a lease she cannot afford." Serena closed one of the brochures slowly. "We are not asking you to pay for everything." I stared at her. "How much are you asking me to pay?" She hesitated. "Only the initial costs. Madison can cover the monthly rent once she gets settled." I laughed once. There was no humor in it. "No." Madison looked stunned. "Seriously?" "Yes, seriously." Claudia's lips tightened. "I hope you never need help from anyone." "I have needed help," I replied. "That is why I know the difference between helping someone and financing their lifestyle." Serena stood up. "Can we discuss this privately?" "No," I said. "Because I am answering the question publicly. I am not paying for this apartment." Madison shoved the brochures into her bag. "You are unbelievable." She stormed out. Claudia followed her, but paused near the door. "You showed your true character tonight," she said. After they left, Serena turned toward me. "You embarrassed my sister." "I refuse to fund an apartment she cannot afford." "She is going through a difficult time." "She is always going through a difficult time." Serena flinched. "That was cruel." "No, cruel would be encouraging her to sign a lease that collapses the moment somebody else stops paying." We argued until nearly midnight. Serena slept on the couch. The next morning, she seemed distant but calm. Before leaving for work, she kissed my cheek and said she hoped we could talk again after everyone had cooled down. I thought the matter was finished. 3 days later, my bank sent me an automatic notification. Scheduled transfer pending, $2,400. Hawthorne Heights Apartments. I stared at the screen for several seconds. Then I called the bank. The representative explained that a recurring payment had been created from our joint savings account. Not a one-time payment. Recurring, monthly. Serena had not only ignored my answer, she had promised her sister that our wedding account would cover the rent indefinitely. I requested a complete transaction history. That afternoon, I sat alone in my workshop with the papers spread across my workbench. The account told a story I had refused to read properly. Groceries for Claudia. Utility bills for Madison. A payment toward Claudia's credit card. A weekend hotel stay Serena had described as a work conference. A $900 transfer to Madison labeled birthday emergency. The $12,000 at the center of our argument had come from the largest private project I had completed that year. Custom interior woodwork for a restored historic home. I deposited it temporarily because Serena had insisted we should finally secure the wedding venue. Instead, she saw the money as a family rescue fund, or perhaps she simply saw it as hers. That evening, I transferred exactly $12,000 back into my business account. I left every dollar Serena had personally deposited, all $684.19 of it. Then I called the wedding venue and canceled our reservation. We lost part of the deposit, but I considered it the least expensive lesson I had ever purchased. I changed the access codes to my house. I packed Serena's clothes, books, decorations, and personal belongings carefully. I did not throw anything into garbage bags. I labeled every box and rented a storage unit for 30 days. I placed the key inside the cedar box I had once intended to use for our wedding vows. Then I drove to Claudia's house because I knew Serena would be there. That was when she shouted at me about the money. That was when Claudia ordered me to pay Madison's rent. And that was when I placed the box on the porch. Serena arrived at my workshop the next morning. I was sanding the edge of a walnut tabletop when I heard her heels striking the concrete floor. She looked exhausted. Her makeup was uneven, and she was still wearing the same sweater from the night before. "You changed the locks," she said. I switched off the sander and removed my protective glasses. "Yes, you cannot lock me out of my own home." "It is not your home, Serena." Her mouth opened slightly. "I lived there for more than a year. You stayed there, you did not pay rent. You did not contribute to the mortgage. Your name is not on the deed," she stared at me. "So that is your plan. Punish me because I tried to help my sister? No. My plan is to stop being punished because I tried to help you." Serena looked around the workshop. For years, she had treated the place as background noise. She liked the income it produced, but she rarely asked what I was building or how difficult my work had been. "You are overreacting," she said. "We can fix this." I shook my head. "Do you know how many hours it took me to earn the $12,000 you promised away?" Her expression hardened. "You always make everything transactional." "It became transactional when your family started treating my paycheck like a shared inheritance." "That is ridiculous." "Is it?" I opened a folder and removed the ledger. I covered Madison's rent 4 times. I paid for her car repairs. I built her shelves, desk, and closet without charging for labor. I rebuilt your mother's kitchen for less than material cost. I replaced her fence. I paid her overdue utility bill last winter. I covered your credit card payment when your hours were reduced. I paid for the engagement party, the venue deposit, and the photographer. Serena looked away. I continued. "Do you know what your family has given me in return? That is not how love works." "You are right. Love is not supposed to require a ledger, but exploitation does." Her eyes filled with tears. "You are ending our engagement over one mistake. It was not one mistake." She wiped her cheek. "Nathan, please, I love you." I wanted those words to affect me. For a moment, they almost did. Then I remembered the bank notification. Not a conversation. Not a request. A scheduled transfer. A decision made behind my back because Serena believed my answer did not matter once her family wanted something. "You love what I provide," I said quietly. "I do not think you love me." The tears disappeared from her eyes almost instantly. "You know what?" she snapped. "Maybe I expected my future husband to act like a man instead of hoarding money while people struggle." I looked down at my hands. Small scars crossed my knuckles. A fresh splinter was embedded near my thumb. "I have spent my life building things that can carry weight," I said. "But no structure survives when one side supports everything." Serena let out a bitter laugh. "There you go again with your carpenter metaphors." "Yes," I replied, "because carpentry taught me something important." "What?" "1. A piece of wood is rotten. You do not keep painting over it. You remove it before it damages the entire structure." She stared at me. Then she grabbed the ledger and tore it in half. "You will regret this." "No," I said. "I regret waiting this long." She threw the torn pages onto the floor and walked out. I did not follow her. I swept the pieces into a dustpan and returned to work. The consequences started almost immediately. Madison's luxury apartment application collapsed because the required payment never arrived. She had already told her friends she was moving downtown. She had posted pictures of the building online and ordered new furniture with a credit card she could barely afford. When the leasing office rejected her application, she called me 14 times in one afternoon. I did not answer. Claudia left several voice messages. The first was furious. The second was threatening. The third was strangely polite. By the fourth, she sounded desperate. "Nathan, whatever happened between you and Serena should not affect Madison. She has done nothing wrong. Please be reasonable." I listened once and deleted the message. Madison had not transferred money from the account herself, but she had accepted every benefit without asking where the money came from. She knew Serena did not earn enough to fund her lifestyle. She simply assumed I would continue covering the difference. 2 weeks later, Serena returned the engagement ring through a mutual friend. There was no note. I sold it. I used part of the money to upgrade equipment in my workshop. With the remainder, I paid for an apprenticeship course for one of my younger employees, Leo. Leo had started working with me at 21. He was quiet, careful, and eager to learn. He took notes whenever I explained a technique, and he never treated manual labor as something beneath him. When I told him I would cover the course, he stared at me. "Why?" he asked. "Because someone helped me when I was starting. That is a lot of money. It is an investment." He nodded slowly. "I will pay you back." "No," I said. "Pay it forward someday." That conversation stayed with me. For years, Serena's family had used the phrase, family helps family, whenever they wanted something. But real help does not feel like a leash. Real help does not demand obedience. Real help gives someone the tools to stand on their own feet. A month after the breakup, Claudia sent me an invoice. I opened the envelope during lunch in my workshop. It listed several absurd expenses: Serena's temporary accommodation, storage unit fees, after the first 30 days, Madison's lost apartment application fee, and something Claudia called emotional damages. At the bottom, she had written a total of $6,830. For nearly a minute, I stared at the paper. Then I started laughing. Leo looked up from the other side of the workshop. "Everything okay?" I handed him the invoice. He read it twice. "Is this serious?" "I think so." "What are you going to do?" I turned toward my computer and opened a blank invoice template. I listed Claudia's kitchen renovation at the standard market rate, Madison's shelves, desk, and closet repairs, the fence replacement, emergency plumbing work, materials, labor, delivery, weekend surcharges. Then I subtracted the small amount Claudia had contributed toward the kitchen materials. The final total came to $18,460. I mailed it with a short note. "I agree that unpaid obligations should be resolved. Please remit the outstanding balance within 30 days. Claudia never mentioned money again." Serena contacted me once more 3 months later. She asked to meet at the restaurant where we first met. For a moment, I considered refusing. Then curiosity won. She arrived 10 minutes late, wearing the same dark green coat I remembered from that first afternoon near the Walnut Bar. "You look good," she said. "So do you." It was not entirely true. She looked thinner, tired. The confidence she once carried had faded into something more guarded. We ordered coffee. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, Serena looked down at the table. "My mother and Madison are not speaking." I waited. Madison moved back in with her. She continued. "It has been difficult. I am sorry to hear that." She gave me a sharp look. "No, you are not." "You are right," I said. "I am not happy about it, but I am not surprised." Serena wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. "I have been thinking about what you said." "Which part?" "That I loved what you provided." I remained silent. She swallowed. "I hated you when you said it. I thought you were cruel. But after you left, every conversation became about money. Madison blamed me because the apartment fell through. My mother blamed me because you stopped helping her. Every phone call was about what I had promised them. And I realized I had been doing the same thing to you." The admission surprised me. Serena's eyes filled with tears, but this time they did not feel rehearsed. "I am sorry," she said. "I should have listened when you said no. I should never have scheduled that payment." "No," I replied, "you should not have." She nodded slowly. "Is there any chance we could start again?" I looked around the restaurant. The walnut bar I repaired years earlier still stood against the wall. Its color had deepened with age, but the joint I fixed remained strong. For a moment, nostalgia pulled at me. Then I remembered how many times I had confused potential with reality. "I forgive you," I said. "But no." Serena closed her eyes. "Because you do not trust me. Because I finally trust myself." We finished our coffee quietly. When we left, she hugged me once and walked toward her car. I watched her leave without anger. That surprised me, too. 6 months after the breakup, I signed the largest contract of my career. A local developer had purchased an old library and planned to restore it as a community arts center. The project included custom bookshelves, stair rails, reading benches, window frames, and restoration work on the original oak doors. It was exactly the kind of project I dreamed about when I started working as a teenager. On the first morning, I unlocked the building before sunrise. I stood alone in the main hall. Dust drifted through the pale light coming from the tall windows. The floors creaked beneath my boots. The wood was scratched, worn, and tired, but beneath the damage, it was still solid. Leo entered behind me, carrying 2 coffees. "Where do we start?" he asked. I looked around the hall. "With the damaged sections," I said. "We keep what is strong. We replace what is not." He handed me a coffee. Another carpenter metaphor? Probably. He smiled. For the first time in years, my money stayed where I put it. My evenings belonged to me. My home became quiet again. Not lonely. Quiet. There is a difference. I replaced the decorations Serena had chosen with things that actually meant something to me. I built a new bookshelf for the living room. I framed one of my father's old sketches and hung it above my workbench. The cedar box remained in my workshop. Claudia returned it after removing everything inside. She left it outside my door without a message. For months, I did not know what to do with it. Eventually, I sanded away the carved branches on the lid. I reshaped the edges. I added compartments inside for chisels, marking gauges, pencils, and small tools. Now it sits on the workbench beside me every day. A reminder. Not of Serena. Not of the wedding that never happened. A reminder that something built for one purpose can become useful again after that purpose disappears. My father used to tell me that the most important part of carpentry happens before the first cut. You measure twice, he said. Not because you are afraid to act, because once you see the line clearly, you commit. For 2 years, I saw the line and refused to cut. I confused patience with loyalty. I confused generosity with love. I thought setting boundaries would make me selfish. It did not. It made me free. I am not anyone's emergency fund. I am not anyone's unpaid contractor. I am not a wallet with rough hands and a tool belt. My name is Nathan Cole. My name is Nathan Cole, and I am a carpenter. And for the first time in a long time, I am building a life that belongs entirely to me.